the biggest thing that I think families are struggling with today is not the lack of sleep, it's the lack of the extended family. Up until 100 years ago, and for the entire history of humanity, you had five nannies. You had your grandma, your aunt, your older sister, etc. And so we created SNOO, worked with MIT Media Lab engineers and leading designers to create this kind of a robotic baby bed or helper that imitates the womb experience and responds when they're upset with increasing levels of motion and sound. And we're doing that, and it secures babies so they can't roll to danger.
Mhm.
So we're doing this for a whole host of reasons. We're doing it to improve infant sleep, improve infant safety, reduce infant crying, help develop their brains.
Welcome to the Company of Dads podcast. I'm your host, Paul Sullivan. We're focused on lead dads, working moms, and how small changes at home or work can have a big impact on their lives. Each episode promises to deliver actionable advice on some area of concern at home or at work. Short, direct, again, actionable. 5 questions, 5 answers. Today, our guest is Dr. Harvey Karp, world-renowned pediatrician and child development expert. Many of you will know his books, Happiest Baby, another one, Happiest Toddler, videos, everything that's guided millions of parents, been translated into 20 languages. He's also the creator of the SNOO Smart Sleeper. And here's the thing for new parents. It promises, FDA approved, not making this up, promises an additional 1 to 2 hours of sleep a day and reduces dangerous rolling. That means parents get another 1 to 2 hours of sleep a day. Dr. Karp, welcome to the Company.
Thanks, Paul. Good to be with you.
Thanks, Rob. So you've been at this a while, done a lot of research, but you're also, pediatrician. You're in there seeing kids. Are babies happier today than when you started out? Do we have more knowledge that's allowed us to be better parents, on the whole?
Well, if mommy and daddy are happy, baby is happy. So
if baby cries, mommy and daddy get to cry too. Is this it?
You know something, when babies are sleeping, mommy and daddy get to sleep. That's one thing I can assure you, if they choose to. But in all seriousness, we are learning about making kids happier and more well-balanced. So I'll give you one example. I mean, as you said in the beginning, this is about practical tips. Whoever said that being in a dark, quiet room for 12 hours a night is the best thing for a baby's developing brain? I mean, we all grew up with a tiptoe, the baby's sleeping, everyone be quiet.
Yeah.
Actually, the sound in the womb is louder than a vacuum cleaner 24/7. And what we're learning is that actually giving children rhythmic sensations all night long, and even during the day, is much more nurturing for the brain than being in dark silence for 12 hours. And so one of the things that the work that we're doing with SNOO, but other work that's being done in hospitals with something called kangaroo care, where premature babies are strapped onto their mother's or father's chest for 6 or 8 or 10 hours a day. These studies of these premature babies who get the rhythmic closeness and coziness, 15 years later, they have improved brain development.
Wow.
Other studies that show if we can improve sleep of infants, we can also improve their brain development. So rhythms, using sound at night, using rocking, using swaddling, those are things that are all associated with A, better sleep and less crying, and now B, evidence that we're actually able to mature the brain in a more advanced way.
And to dumb it down, is that because when a baby is in utero, the mother's obviously moving around, and so the baby is used to that motion and the noise, or is it something else that contributes to that development?
It's something else. So thank you for mentioning The Happiest Baby on the Block. That's a book I wrote 20 some odd years ago. But in it, I described something that has never been described in the medical literature, which is that babies have a reflex, almost an off switch for crying and an on switch for sleep, called a calming reflex. And the way you turn that on is by imitating the rhythms of the womb. It's kind of like we all know to do this. Like if a baby is asleep in your arms, you rock them slowly and you shush them quietly. But if they're crying, you kind of get more bouncy and you shush them louder and more high pitched. Why do you do more bouncy and more high pitched? You're actually turning on a reflex. You're flipping on this switch, which is one of the most important reflexes that human beings ever had, because that preserved the human race. The human species
Right.
is existing because babies could keep their heads down by the cervix the last 2 months of pregnancy and be born head first. Because if they're not born head first, they get stuck by their shoulders and their legs,
Right.
and so our big brained babies have to be born head first. Once they're born, you can put them into this trance by doing the rhythms of the womb. And in fact, even adults fall asleep in trains and planes and cars because of this ancient reflex that's part of our brain.
And again, intellectually, I agree with that. But, sort of practically, I remember, my three daughters, I would have to, if I was rested, I would get in the glider and I'd sit there. We had our middle daughter was a real crier, and we didn't realize for 6 months that she had some reflux issues and all this. But for those first 6 months, and if I could get into that glider and just kind of ignore the crying and rock back and forth, she would go to sleep, of course, just as you're saying, scientifically proven. But the reality is, as a parent, you got a lot of other things going on. And if you're a working parent
Yeah.
and if you have other kids, how do you help parent, realize that in the most in extremis moments, they need to be, calmer than they would be in everyday life to soothe their baby?
Well, I mean, flipping out doesn't help us in any
Doesn't
situation,
help
right?
anybody. Yelling doesn't really
Yeah.
solve any problem, but we still
Yes.
yell. We still yell.
I
It
know.
doesn't really
And
solve any
listen,
problem.
and I yell too. So, I mean, nobody's perfect in any of this. But the fact of the matter is that the biggest thing that I think families are struggling with today is not the lack of sleep, it's the lack of the extended family. Up until 100 years ago, and for the entire history of humanity, you had five nannies. You had your grandma, your aunt, your older sister, etc. And so we created SNOO, worked with MIT Media Lab engineers and leading designers to create this kind of a robotic baby bed or helper that imitates the womb experience and responds when they're upset with increasing levels of motion and sound. And we're doing that, and it secures babies so they can't roll to danger.
Mhm.
So we're doing this for a whole host of reasons. We're doing it to improve infant sleep, improve infant safety, reduce infant crying, help develop their brains. But from the parents' point of view, what we're trying to do is give a support system so that they can cook dinner or eat dinner or take a shower and be able to get that little bit of time, like you're saying, to rock in the glider. Now, you didn't have a SNOO, Paul, but if you had a SNOO, you probably you could rock in the glider if you wanted, but if you didn't have the time to do that, you could put your little child in SNOO, and SNOO would be rocking in the glider.
Mhm.
And so now parents, for the cost of a Starbucks coffee a day, can in essence have a 24-hour helper in the house.
Fascinating. Question two. I said my oldest is 16, so call it 16 and a half years ago. We went to our local hospital and they had parent training, and it was after work, a bunch of other soon to be parents there. They showed us how to put a diaper on a doll. They showed us how to soothe the doll. They gave us a donut. They gave us orange juice, what have you. And I walked out of there pretty confident. And then of course what happened in reality was utterly different than that. And I thought, I felt gypped. Like that course should have been taught by
Yeah.
a retired Navy SEAL, like kicking the door into my house at 3 a.m. after I had one glass of wine too many and throwing water on me. That would have been, more realistic. So a serious question. And question two here, in your expertise, how can we, make it better for fathers and mothers who are going into parenthood for the first time? What are the things that they really need to know that they're not getting from these classes, or they don't have time necessarily to read in the books, but the things that will help them be better prepared for what it's like, whether it's their first child, second child, or third child?
Yeah. Well, it turns out the good news is it's not rocket science, right? I mean, shampooing the hair, you're going to learn that. Taking care of the belly button, you're going to learn that. But there are three skills that make it or break it for you. It's kind of, I tell my patients, parenting with a baby is like a three-legged stool. If you got the three legs there, it's easy peasy. If you lose any one of the legs, you're going to have real problems. And so feeding the baby, obviously, whether you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, doesn't matter. You got to be successful at that. And there are all sorts of lactation consultants and La Leche League and all sorts of support for women today and parents today in terms of feeding their babies. But the other two legs are calming crying and getting sleep. And in fact, that is why I wrote this book so many years ago, because nobody was teaching parents how to do those two things. And in fact, parents are miseducated and they're told, you know what, the baby's stomach is the size of a walnut. They need to eat, wake up all the time because you got to feed them every 2 hours. And then we tell them, some babies cry. We call it colic. We don't know exactly what it is. I mean, yes, sometimes it's a reflux issue like your daughter had, but many times it isn't a reflux issue. And it's misdiagnosed as reflux. And really, what it is the baby wishing that they were back in the uterus where they had a happy time. And so what anybody can learn now is they can come to our website, they can read the book or come to the website, and we made a video, a little 30-minute video, which teaches people something called the 5 S's, which are the 5 steps to turn on the calming reflex. Super easy. It's swaddling with the arms down. It's the side or stomach position. Now, the back is the only position for sleep that's safe, but it's the worst position for a crying baby. So you roll them to the side or stomach to calm the crying. And once they're calm and you put them to sleep, you put them on the back. The third S is shushing or white noise. The fourth S is swinging or rhythmic motion, like you did in the glider. And the fifth S is sucking. And what's really interesting is babies are different. Some babies, they all kind of need swaddling, but some it's swaddling and sound or the secret combo. Some are swaddling in motion. Some kids need 3 or 4 of these at the same time. Once you find what your baby responds to, that's the secret sauce, and they'll respond to that over and over again. As a matter of fact, they'll respond faster and faster as they learn, that you are delivering the things that they need. So to answer your question, those are the things that new parents need to know. Feeding baby successfully, calming crying, and getting sleep. And Paul, did you use white noise? When we're talking about practical things.
100%. We definitely did use white noise. Yeah, we had a white noise machine. Yep.
So a lot of people go, that's weird. I don't want to get my kid used to it or dependent upon it. Did you have problems with it? Was it hard to wean your kids or anything like that?
No, we had a whole house of white noise at one point.
Okay.
Everybody had white noise. No.
Yeah. So fine. White noise is a new thing. And I mean, grandparents will go, why are you playing that sound? But, it's like a teddy bear of sound. It is something that triggers this calming reflex in the child's brain. And of course, it helps them not listen to the passing trucks and planes and whatever. So it's very, very useful. But it turns out you need the right type of white noise. In other words, there's good white noise and bad white noise. I don't know if you know that. There are 2 different classes of white noise. So white noise is either high-pitched and loud or rumbly and low-pitched. High-pitched sounds are excellent for getting your attention. Screams, sirens, beepers, alarms.
Right.
Not very good for sleep. Low-pitched rumbles, the sound of the plane, the train, the car, very good for sleep, not so good for getting your attention. And so it's important. And what we built into SNOO, for example, is it's a rumbly, low-pitched sound all night long. But when the child gets upset, it's louder and more high-pitched because that imitates what a parent would do and activates this calming reflex. So it isn't like a one and done with sound. You have to understand that there are different qualities that have different effects.
Fantastic. Thank you. Question 3, I say we were talking, before we started recording about toddlers and the happiest toddler. And of course, I was joking with you because that seems oxymoronic to have the happiest toddler. But talk about that because, look, babies are babies, but they can't move. Toddlers can move, but they can't always move very well. What are the things that parents get wrong or in a positive way, need to know to create that happiest toddler, but also, again, we're talking about working parents here, have some joy about parenthood, but also some peace in their home.
Yeah. So as a pediatrician, we deal with kids who do not want to be with us, right? They don't want the shot. They don't want to take off their clothes. Take your cold hand off of my belly. Yeah. And so I challenge myself.
Our pediatrician says that our youngest, when she was young, he would see her and he labeled on her chart FO, and that was for formidable opponent. And so she would wrestle with it.
Exactly. Well, it turns out rather than using force against force, I try to use other methods to build rapport. And it turns out there are a lot of very simple techniques that make young children feel happy, engaged, and safe. And so my goal and my reputation and my practice and my community was I was the doctor that could help kids get over doctor phobia. And so there are a lot of very simple techniques, like 20 different techniques that are in the Happiest Toddler book and the video. Um, and I do videos because a lot of these things, you got to see the quality. Like you say to shush, but does that mean shh or shh? There's subtlety to some of these things. And so with toddlers, the key concept for toddlers is that they're not your little friend, they're not your little buddy, they're not little adults, basically. They are cavemen. They are frickin' primitives. They are uncivilized. And your job between 8 months of age and 5 years of age is to civilize them so they say please and thank you, wait in line, share their toys, and don't pee on the carpet. So there are techniques. So why are they uncivilized? They're uncivilized because of brain development. Now, we have two halves of the brain, right? The right half, the left half of the brain. It kind of looks like a walnut if you were to peel off the skull. And the left half of the brain is the adult half of the brain. It's patience, logic, problem solving, verbal capability, delayed gratification. Toddlers, not so good on the left brain. The right brain is emotionality, fight or flight reflex, bouncing to the music, recognizing a face and a place. They're excellent at that. A 9 month old, if you say to your 9 month old, father is sad, they have no freaking clue what you're talking about. But if you go, they'll come over and hold your knee and comfort you. A 9 month old will. So they understand nonverbal communication. And the biggest mistake parents make is when you're trying to calm your toddler, you do it with a calm voice. You like they're in the jungle of their emotions and you're going, come out of the jungle. No, you got to go in the jungle and you have to reflect a third of their emotion, not all of their emotion, just a third of their emotion in your tone of voice, gestures, and using repetition. So when your child is upset, you might say something like, you're mad. You're so mad. And your face is empathic and you're down at their level. And you might have to do that 6 or 8 times. And it's not going to work every time, but a lot of times they're going to look at you and shake their head yes with that stuck out lower lip. And then you could go, oh, you didn't like that. And you say, you don't want that anymore. And then your language gets a little bit more coherent and longer. And then ultimately you'll get to normal language. But all of us, I mean, you're a writer, Paul. If you were to write in a scene in a book about someone is grieving, they just lost the spouse or something, and you go to them and you say, I know that's very unhappy. I can understand why you're looking so sad because you lost your spouse. And that really is one of the most desolate experiences. I mean, you're walking away from this person, even though the words are right.
Right.
But if you go up to that person, you go, oh, I, oh my God, I, I don't even know what to say. I can't imagine. Suddenly you can even feel that in your own body. But if you read that in a book, it would be gibberish. It wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
So it turns out that young children are emotion up the yin yang, right? And so all day long you'll be practicing. I call this toddlerese, this special type of language. And there are many, many other very simple little techniques that in a day can improve a toddler's behavior.
I love that. And I'm hoping you get toddlerese into Google Translate. Do you have that? So if I speak it into...
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it's a lot of finger gestures.
Question 4. We've been talking about the happiest baby. We've been talking about the happiest toddler. But, what about that span from 5 to 18? And by that, I mean, I'm super fortunate to have 2 teenage daughters with whom I have an excellent relationship with. And people always roll their eyes and say, how is that possible? And I say, well, I've been fortunate that since they were babies, I was there. I would sit with them. I would put them to, when they're younger, I put them to bed. 9 times out of 10, I'd fall asleep when I was reading to them in bed, all of
Hmm.
this stuff.
Hmm.
And now I still sit on their bed. And that's not to say that every day is rosy and every day they say, "Oh, Dad, you're the greatest." There's lots of eye
Hmm.
rolls and on that, but a very solid relationship. When you think of, throughout, the decades of your pediatric practice and seeing these kids up until age 18, what were the key things to help develop happy, if not the happiest, but happy teenagers and young adults? And the flip side of that
Yeah.
is always, what do parents get wrong, or what do we get wrong? Like, but what really creates that level of security and happiness so that the kid can function well as they go off in life?
Such a good, important question, and obviously such a dilemma in our society today. And well, you put your finger on one of the important parts, which is being there, time, availability, and not being there with your telephone on, but being there really to listen and talk. And what I would always tell parents is, God gave you two ears and one mouth because you should be listening twice as much as you're talking. And and um and I teach that to kids also so that they can learn to be good listeners. Because you know what? We talk about love, how important love is, unconditional love. But there's something that's more important than unconditional love in building a healthy person, and that's respect.
Mm.
If you love somebody and you don't respect them, you're going to screw up their minds terribly. If you respect them and you don't love them, it's not the best, but at least you got respect. And so, how do you show respect is the next question. And the way you do that is by being present, being available, and and honestly, that toddlerese thing where you reflect back someone's feelings, like when your child's upset and she's so mad because she wasn't invited to the birthday party, right? And you could rush in and say, honey, let's go. I'm going to take you to the movies instead. So forget those friends. Then I don't even like them anyway. I mean, so I'm not saying it's wrong to do that ultimately. Parents like to solve problems. But when you immediately solve a problem, you're implying to your child that they can't solve it themselves and that you don't have confidence in them. And you feel that they're so needy that you immediately have to rescue them. You can live in the discomfort a little bit and go, oh, I, I don't even know. Wow, I don't know what to say. How did that make you feel? How did she tell that to you? Did you hear it from the other kid? I mean, explore it a little bit. Don't be in a rush to solve it. And you're going to solve it later on. And that implies respect. When it comes with teenagers, so there's another phenomena that you have to understand. Part of respect is allowing your kids to call you an idiot and to run away from you because they need to establish their independence and their own sense of self. And so with teenagers all the time, it's like, you know, do you know the Mark Twain line? When I was 17, I couldn't believe how stupid my old man was. And when I was 22, I couldn't believe how much he had learned in 5 years. So we have to let them rebel from us and have some independence. And yet we still have to set limits. So, it's not like, you're the worst parent in the world. Can I have the car keys? That doesn't work. Uh, but we have to give them chores and responsibilities and money and respect them as they're growing up and advancing that sense of we trust their authority.
I love that. And I had something just last night. We're driving home separately. My wife called with our oldest daughter in the car, and she was so excited that one of my favorite musicians is playing, and it's a Saturday night, and we can go. And my oldest daughter invites herself along, and I was like, I don't want to take you. Like, I don't want to take you. Like, I've taken you to plenty of concerts. You've gone to concerts without me. I don't want to take you. And she thought I was joking. And I said, no, this is like the musician that mom and I, early on in a relationship, I want to get another couple and have an adult night out. And she turned to me and said, that's not very company of dads of you now, is it? And I said, I think it's actually very company of dads of me.
Well, I mean, but this is another lesson, which is um, you don't have to blind people with the truth. You know what I mean? You could first start by saying, "Oh my God, I didn't even think of inviting." I mean, Of course, you love to go, and I would love to take you. Actually, I mean, it was so much fun. We always have fun at the concerts. But you know what? This one time, I told mom that I was just going to do it, and so you don't have to be quite like I don't want to bring you. It's a little harsh parenting. You,
I,
you
for
got.
the record, doctor, I didn't say it exactly like that. Okay, give me a little bit of credit here. So,
You're going to end up in the company of one if you keep doing it
uh,
that way.
so hey, I took her to Katy Perry a couple weeks
Oh, well, all
ago,
right.
and
That's a good
so
dad.
we
That's a
had good
giving
seeing.
dad.
Katie was like flying over us, and I was like, and I'm taking her to some singer named Tate McRae, a Canadian pop star, in a couple weeks, and it'll be our second time seeing her. So I've got
Okay, you got you street
plenty
cred.
of
You got street cred.
cash in the bank. I got cash in the bank here. But doctor, that leads in nicely to our fifth and final question, because again, we're about
Sagittarius. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, blue, navy blue is my favorite color. No, is it the fifth and final question is we're all about helping families fulfill their full potential, about lead dads, stepping out in the community and at work, about supporting working moms in the office or in the community. And so when you think about this, as you look at that family unit, like the happiest family unit and the successful families that you've seen over the years with kids, what's your advice for working parents and fathers in particular today?
And man, oh man, I mean, we call it the sandwich generation, right? People are caught between, they're caught in a vice, right? They got all these kid responsibilities, even responsibilities with their parents, maybe, and work responsibilities and community responsibilities. I mean, it's a really tough one. So, number one, any parents should be patting themselves on the back for doing, for getting through the day because it is not easy. And like I said in the beginning, you should have five nannies, your grandma, your aunt, your older sister, everybody helping you. That's the way it always was up until 100 years ago when we suddenly had the bright idea of like, I'm moving to Chicago or I'm going to move to New York, and won't that be fun? Not realizing how important it was to have the family, by your side. So, I mean, people have to make priorities. Right now, we have too many options. And by that, I mean social media and all of these other things that are distracting us, television and whatnot. So it's a matter of making priorities, making time. There is a concept of quality time, even if you don't have quantity time. So when you do have that time together, you take her out to Katy Perry and it's just the two of you and you hear about what's going on at school or that nighttime telling the stories. That's really important to when you're together, be present,
Mm.
be there. And when you can't be there, cop to it and say, I wish I could, but parents ultimately have to make the decision of when to turn off the electronics and really make the investment to be there with their kids. Going outside is incredibly important. Nature has something that is a vitamin, that is a nurturance for children as well as adults. The green color is very, very calming to your nervous system. And
Mm.
for children to be out in nature, it puts them in an environment that feels right sized for them. I'll give you just one tiny example about this. Toddlers, we make toddlers live in a house. Up until 1,000 years ago, toddlers lived in a teepee or a cave or a little hut. And as soon as they woke up, they'd go out, they'd pee on the grass, they'd run after the chickens and the dogs, they'd roll down the hill, they'd look for the 5-year-old because they're always running after the kids who are just a little bit older. We think it's normal to be in a house or an apartment, flat floor, flat walls, flat ceiling, boring, so boring for kids. And if they start acting up, we think they have attention deficit. No, they have nature deficit. They need to get outside. And so the more we can do that and spend time with our kids and be in an environment that is not so sterile, that's something. And again, we don't have a lot of time to do it. So you have to kind of plan it, put it on the
Yeah.
calendar, let kids look forward to it. But that's what children remember. And what they hang on to is like, my dad would do this with me. And it's a package, it's a gift that you're giving kids.
Dr. Harvey Karp, creator of SNOO, happiest baby, happiest toddler. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Probably the happiest pediatrician I've ever spoken to. Thank you for being my guest today on the Company of Dads podcast. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
What a pleasure. Really love your work, Paul. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Company of Dads podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in week after week. Just want to use this moment here to thank the people who make it possible. Number one, of course, Helder Mira, who is our podcast editor. We also have Skip Cherryholmes, who many of you know from the Lead Dad Diaries. He's taken over our social media. Terry Brennan is helping us with our audience development, and Emily Servin is there each and every day helping with the web development. I can't do any of this without an amazing board of advisors. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who help, and I want to say thank you to everyone who listens, and hopefully you'll tune in again next week. Thanks so much.